The topic today is how to get prospects to answer the phone when cold calling. So, one of the biggest challenges you face as a salesperson or a business owner that's doing outbound prospecting is simply just getting prospects to answer the phone. One of the things is that you could spend an hour phone prospecting and it seems like you might get voicemail that entire hour. And if you're not getting voicemail, you might be getting your prospects' phone calls routed to a gatekeeper where the gatekeeper is answering your call and blocking you out. So the point here is that it can be extremely difficult just to get a live body prospect on the phone. And that's why probably you're here today. And so with that being the case, the goal is trying to figure out how to get prospects to answer the phone. But one thing that's kind of flawed in that goal is that there's nothing that we can do to force someone or to get someone to answer the phone that's not answering the phone. For example, there are things you can do with an email that might get a prospect to read your email or to not delete your email so quickly. But when the phone rings, there's nothing that you can really do that motivates the prospect to answer the phone. So what I want to do is I want to sort of scratch that goal out and modify it a bit to say, instead of figuring out how to get prospects to answer the phone, let's figure out how to get into new accounts. That's really what we're trying to accomplish, right? When we're frustrated by a prospect not answering the phone. And that definitely applies where trying to get into new accounts where prospects aren't answering our phone call. But at the end of the day, that's really what we're trying to accomplish. So maybe we can alter our strategy or what we're trying to figure out to focus on that, and if we're successful in that, then that's going to definitely alleviate our other concern. That being the case, as I mentioned, you can't control whether or not the prospect answers your phone or try to do anything to really impact that. So I'm real big on let's focus on what you can control. And it's kind of like that saying, don't worry and stress about things that are out of your control. Worry and stress about things that you can control. And so that's what I want to talk about here today. And here are the things that you can control. You can control how you communicate with prospects in terms of what methods of communication you use, how you're reaching out to them. You can control how many times you try to contact them and how many times you try to reach out to them and the frequency of time in between the times that you reach out. You can control what you say when you reach out, whether that's over the phone or an email, and that's basically driven by your sales pitch, and you definitely have control over what you say. The gatekeeper may seem like an obstacle between you and the prospects that you're trying to reach and trying to sell to ultimately. What you can control is how you deal with that prospect and maybe turning them from an obstacle into an asset, and an asset that you're able to leverage. You can definitely move throughout an organization, and there are key simple things that you can do that you might not be doing today, and we kind of classify those under organizational movement. Kind of applies more towards B2B selling, but we'll talk about each of these things. That's kind of our agenda here today. And so let's just start out with really focusing on how you communicate. One of the main ways that we communicate is through the phone. But if you're not able to get the prospect on the phone, let's try to reach the prospect in other ways and try to use more of a multi-touch approach. That's kind of the first thing that you should think about, right? If the prospect's not answering your phone, you have two options. You can move on and try to reach another prospect by the phone only, or you can try to use other methods to try to reach the prospect, such as leaving voicemail. We talked about you get the prospect's voicemail box most of the time when you call them. Well, that's a way to communicate to them. I'm not going to say that that's a way to sell to the prospect, or that you could do anything on a voicemail message that's going to get the prospect to call you back and say, send me a quote. And I won't say that prospects listen to every message or listen to the complete messages, but it is a way to communicate. Definitely email is an important way to communicate to a prospect. So let's use email in the proper and optimum way. We could use social media. I mean, social media is becoming a bigger and bigger part of the world that we live in. So social media could play a role. We might use old school physical snail mail. If you're trying to use every outlet to try to reach a prospect, that's something that should definitely be considered. So let's go through each of those a little bit and I'll just give you a few tips on each, and I'll direct you some more information on each of those methods as we go as well. Starting with the phone, the first thing I want to say is most likely you're not calling your prospect enough. There could be some people out there that are calling too much, but I would say most of the time you're not calling enough. One of the reasons why is because your prospect, and I'll talk about this more in a minute when I talk about, kind of understanding the prospect, but your prospect, if you're calling a decision maker at a decision maker level and you're calling their office, the majority of the time they're not in their office. So you might call them 5 times and you might think that they're sitting there ignoring your call and that you've tried and you don't want to bother them and you're going to move on. The reality is that most of the time you might be calling an empty desk and it's just ringing and no one's sitting there. And if you really agree with that, then you have to call a lot to increase the odds of calling at a time when the decision maker is there. So increase attempts. Don't worry about bugging anybody. One thing you might want to try is if you're getting gatekeepers a lot, or if you're getting lost in a phone matrix auto attendant system, try to work to get a direct dial number. That can be one thing that can improve your ability to get a hold of a prospect if you don't currently have their direct dial number. And so you can try to ask this in certain ways from a gatekeeper. They may be guarded with that information and not give that out. One way to sort of it might be a little trickery, but one way to get the direct dial from a gatekeeper is just to share another number with them that has like their main their area code and the beginning of their main corporate number, and then throw out a random 4 digits or however many digits at the end and say, hey, I don't think I have the right number for, and share their name and say, I'm dialing this number. Can you confirm if that's correct or not? That can kind of make them more comfortable with checking that and then giving you the right number. You can also look at that from the other side of not using a direct dial. Maybe you are calling the prospect on their direct number and they know who you are and they're avoiding your call because they see you on caller ID. Well, one thing to try, just as another way to sort of mix things up, is actually try to go through the main switchboard and get transferred to the prospect. That way your number might show up differently. It might come in as an internal transfer. Just something to try. You also might want to think about what hours you're calling. So good hours to call if you're calling at an executive or decision maker level is to call at first thing in the morning, 7 to 8 or 5 to 6 at the end of the day. Those are good times when you might catch an executive or decision maker at their desk where they might be in meetings the rest of the time. Those are also good times when the gatekeeper is maybe out and the gate decision makers answering their calls. Also 12 to 1, so the lunch hour. Times to avoid are often 10 to 2, 10 and 2. So those are some of the most common times that meetings get scheduled. It's sometimes a peak time when people are really productive, so it can be easy for a salesperson to think, okay, I got my admin stuff out of the way, it's about 10 o'clock, so I'm going to do some power prospecting, and then they get nothing but voicemail, or they do that at 2 o'clock. The reason why is because the same reason why you thought, okay, I'm ready to get going and to work hard, is the same reason why people schedule meetings at that time and that your prospects are never in their office when you're getting going and ready to go. Get in your power dialing mode first thing in the morning when you might not typically be, because that's when a prospect might be sitting at their desk in their sort of wind up mode and might be in an okay mood to answer the call. So that's all I'm going to talk about on phone, believe it or not. Mostly I'm going to really focus on doing all the other stuff around continuing to call in this webinar, and then also talk to you about how to put it all together. But let's talk a little bit about voicemail message. Think of the voicemail box and the voicemail message as a commercial airtime space. So like if you're purchasing a radio commercial ad or for the television ad. And so think about what you're going to say in this time. And I would personally use that time to educate the prospect on who you are, why they should talk to you at some point when you're able to get a hold of them. By the way, the opposite of that is what most salespeople do, which is they try to leave a message that motivates the prospect to call them back. And, hey, I sell this product, give me a call back when you get a chance. So there's a lot of things wrong with that message, and I'll point you to some information that explains a little bit more on that. If a prospect's never answering your call, you might sporadically leave voicemail messages. And if you're going to leave more than one message, leave different messages. So if you're going to use that time to educate the prospect, you can use different messages to build on the type of education that you're trying to do. So like I said, it's going to take a lot of call attempts to try to reach someone. So don't leave a voicemail message on every attempt. One thing about leaving a voicemail message is that you have to pause for a certain amount of time, whether that's a day, 2 days, a week, whatever, because if you call back a lot and leave a voicemail every time you call, you might start to look crazy and scare and push a prospect away. Mix in no voicemails with some of your attempts. The nice thing about hanging up and not leaving voicemail is it allows you to keep calling back in a small amount of time. Meaning I could call you this morning, hang up, and I can call you again this afternoon and not feel like I'm stalking you, because for all I know you were out of your office and I'm just calling you back. If I leave you a voicemail message in the morning and I call you again in the afternoon, that's going to start to look a bit odd. And the key thing here is the goal of a voicemail is not to get a call back or to sell the product, it's to educate the prospect. And a best practice that I would implement is to follow up every voicemail that you leave with a voicemail follow-up email. So this is where you begin to start to surround your prospect and hit them from different sides. You're calling them, you're leaving them a voicemail, you're following up your voicemail with an email. Here's a webinar that we did on how to use voicemail in the best way when you're prospecting. And so there's an actual link here to a webinar. It's on YouTube, but you can get it on our website as well, and you can get it if you download these slides. Moving on to email. One thing that I'm really passionate about on email, as well as really anytime you communicate with the prospect, but try not to sound like a salesperson trying to sell something. I get emails every day from salespeople, and the emails pretty much say, hey, I'm with this company, we provide this, I want to schedule a meeting with you. And basically they're saying, I want to schedule a meeting with you where I can try to sell to you, right? So there's nothing real enticing about that. Unless I'm actively looking to buy what that person sells at that very moment, which if you think about it, the odds of that are very low. Even if I do purchase what they sell from time to time, the odds of me needing at that exact moment what they sell are fairly low. It doesn't mean that I shouldn't talk to them, but if they're sending me an email trying to sell to me and I'm not buying at that particular time, I might not have a reason to reply, and I might find it a bit annoying, because business owners or decision makers get emails a lot from salespeople. So don't try to sell the product, try to sell the conversation as a result of that. And there's a few different types of emails that you can incorporate in your prospecting. You can create and send pre-call emails, which are emails that are designed to introduce yourself and be sent before you speak with someone. You can send post voicemail emails, which is what I talked about a minute ago. You might tie a bunch of emails together to create what we call an email thread, and I'll show you an example of one of those. And you might send marketing emails as well. You should just anticipate that you're going to have to make a lot of passes before you can really connect with a prospect. So you're going to have to make a lot of calls, you might have to leave a lot of multiple voicemails, you might have to send multiple emails. So create different versions of your emails for those multiple times that you go back to the prospect. And you might be calling someone and you can't get them on the phone, and you might not have emailed them because you don't have their email address. So you're like, well, I don't have their email address, so I'm just going to call, and that's the only option I have. Well, something I've done for a very long time is you can actually guess a prospect's email address. If you know their name, their first name, last name, and you know where they work, and if you know where they work, you might know their company website address. And if you combine those together, that usually some combination of all those details will typically be their corporate email address. So when I was a salesperson, I used to just sort of take a mixture of their first name, last name, and then their company website address, and I would send them an email. And if it bounced back, I would try a different version, version of their email address, and then try again. And usually between 3 to 4 attempts, it would stop bouncing back. It's a bit clunky of a process. I'll actually show you something that makes that easier, but it does work. I mean, if you You know, like maybe you might not want to do that for every prospect because it'll take a bit of time. But if there's really a high value target prospect that you're trying to reach and you don't have their email address, that typically works. There's also actually verification tools out on the internet that you can plug your guest email address into, and it'll give you a response whether or not that's valid or not. So there is a webinar that we've done on using email as a prospecting tool, so you might want to check that out. Go into all sorts of detail on all those points that I just went through in that. You can try to use social media to connect with your prospects. So some different options that you might want to think about. You could connect with them. So connect with them on LinkedIn or follow them on Twitter. Once you're connected, try to broadcast content that can help you stay fresh in a prospect's mind, or to broadcast information to them that might be advantageous. For example, if there's a particular business problem that your company helps to solve, then it might be good for you to broadcast articles on that particular topic. Don't broadcast advertisements for your product. Broadcast helpful industry information. You might want to like and share their contact. These are all small things, right? In fact, every little detail I'm giving you here today, not one of them is one that's going to make the prospect raise their hand and say, "Can you send me a quote?" It's about doing all these things and doing them a lot over a large number of contacts that will improve your ability to get into new accounts. But you might want to like and share their content that they have on social media. You could send them direct messages to try to communicate and collaborate. I will caution you, like if you do this on LinkedIn, don't connect with someone and then send them a direct message on LinkedIn where you try to sell your product. I think that's a party foul or a no-no, whatever you want to label it. I have that done to me all the time. Someone connects with me, and maybe I know that they don't want to be friends, but then they'll send me an email trying to sell me their product right after I accept their connection request on LinkedIn. So don't do that. Now, you could reach out to them and try to establish a business conversation. The email templates and the sales pitch that we would help you to produce, us being SalesScripter, would help you to reach out, would be something that you could use on LinkedIn to reach out where you wouldn't look like you're selling the product, and you could be looking like you're just trying to start a conversation. And don't forget about physical mail. You know, the nice thing about physical mail is that people don't receive it anymore. But, you know, you could send a letter, and it could be actually just very similar to what you might send to a prospect in an email. Just, you know, maybe create a letter version of it, print it out, sign it. I'll tell you, if you did it in a very nice professional way where you actually hand wrote the letter with very nice handwriting on nice paper, that would get a prospect's attention. I guarantee they'd open and read it if it looked nice. You don't want to, scribble it. Something to think about there with direct mail. You could also do direct marketing mail, something to factor in as part of your overall effort. So those are the different ways that you can reach out to the prospect. And now, how many times should you reach out? And I talked a little bit about you probably not calling enough. Before we think about how often we reach out, let's try to understand the prospect. I don't know if you've ever been a manager like in a corporate environment, if you're calling into a corporate environment, but it can be really hectic with meetings all day. You're always pulled into a different meeting. So if you're trying to sell to a manager, director, VP, and you have their direct line, if their calendar was meeting after meeting after meeting, like I said before, you're calling them and you think they're ignoring your call, they're just not there. They're often in meetings. Or another thing that can happen is they might be traveling all over the place. They might be in Europe for 2 weeks. And 3 of your attempts were when they were in Europe and whatnot. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're calling. And that should factor in with your logic with how many times you should keep calling, and just maybe the safe assumption, you might naturally assume that someone's ignoring your call and you've called enough. The better assumption might be that they're never in their office, and that you just need to keep calling because is what you have to do to increase the odds of connecting with them. The other thing to keep in mind when you're trying to understand the prospect is that they get a lot of calls, a lot of emails, and a lot of voicemails. So this will impact how they answer the call when they do answer the call. This will impact how they react when they receive your email, and this will impact whether or not they listen to your voicemail or what they do. So I talk a little bit about each of those, how to deal with each of those in those webinars that I pointed you to. So I won't go into that in too much detail, but it's something to keep in mind. And so we need to do a lot of repetition, a lot of calls, a lot of emails, multiple voicemails, multiple calls without voicemails. And so that's what we need to do. Now, regarding the phone, if you don't leave a voicemail, I would call you don't worry about calling multiple times in a day or multiple times in a week. It's when you sort of leave a voicemail that you need to alter that a bit. From an email perspective, I would send maybe one pre-call email a week and then one post voicemail email after every voicemail message. So kind of giving you some ideas here on how many times and how often. Actually, talking about how often really here. And leaving voicemail, I might leave voicemail once per week or every other week. It's kind of how many times are you calling them in between your voicemail message, but one voicemail a week or every other week. So those are some ideas there on sort of the repetition, and how often are we reaching out in these different formats. So now let's focus on what you say when you reach out. Because the reality is that if you're sending someone an email or you're leaving someone a voicemail and you don't say the right stuff, that's going to have an impact on how you're received. So what you say definitely can impact your results. And meaning, for example, if you send an email that turns someone off and gets instantly deleted, then that's going to impact your ability to get in. Versus if you send a better email, the better email might not, like I said, get them to respond with a send me a quote response, but small changes in your emails and small changes in the message you leave over voicemail, what you say when someone answers the phone will improve your results, or what you say to gatekeepers. So to help with this, let's think about what a typical salesperson or sales pitch looks like. So a typical salesperson will say, their sales pitch will center around, hey, this is the company I work for, or I'm with such and such company. We sell product X. The product X provides this set of features or functionality. This is how much it costs, and the goal is to always try to close the sale. Even if there's a sales process, the goal is always validating a need to buy on the customer side. Just like I said, and so like you can convert that into an email that a lot of salespeople send to prospects. Hi, I'm with such and such company. We provide such and such services. I want to schedule a meeting with you to see what your needs are in this area, or to see if you need our services, right? So like I said, even if you purchase the services, you might not do it in your response to the email or in the first call, but the goal is always trying to validate interest in buying and closing the sale. So what I would call that is a product selling sales pitch. And that's what I think the majority of salespeople do out there. So what we try to get you to do is, instead of talking about the company and the products, focus more on the benefits that your products help someone to realize and improve. Talk about the problems that you can either fix for them, or the problems that you typically help to fix for the customers that purchase from you. And I'm real big on salespeople asking more questions, or good questions, and some good questions to ask are questions that probe for the problems that you fix. If you fix a certain set of problems, then ask questions around to see if those are concerns or problems that the prospect has. If they don't have those, then maybe that's not someone that you should spend your valuable time talking to. If you differ in any way from the competition, that's a really good thing to highlight in your sales pitch. Sharing customer examples is a great way to not only communicate what you actually do, use an example to communicate what you do, but it's also a good way to build interest. It's a good way to establish credibility. If you deliver ROI, communicate some sort of the financial value that you help to offer, and instead of trying to close the sale, focus your pitch on starting conversations. So that's where we want you to be. Now, one of the reasons why most people stay on the left is that it's easier to try to sell on the left. It's just easier to do. If you're a salesperson or a business owner, you already know a lot about your company and you know a decent amount about your product. I mean, you might not be the technical guru that installs your product, but you know a lot about your product. I mean, you think about this stuff every day. So for you just to go out and to talk about your company, the product, and what it does is easy. You know, it's the path of least resistance. I'm not saying it's the most effective, but it's the easiest. You don't have to think as much. Now the right side is a bit harder. It's not easy to talk. It's a bit more sophisticated. You either have to kind of organize your thoughts. You need to organize your thoughts at some point. You know, you might do it once, and then you might have your sales pitch put together, and then you have everything ready. But it does take a little bit of taking a step back and stopping the sales effort and organizing your thoughts. Now, and so it's a little bit of an effort. Now, what I want to show you is actually Sales Scripter real quick. And the reason why I want to show you this is, yes, it's a little bit difficult to have that pitch, but Sales Scripter actually helps you to go through that process. Like if I'm just logged into my account here, Sales Scripter provides a feature called a Sales Pitch Builder, and it'll take you through this workflow of steps that will help you to organize the benefits that you offer and the pain points that you help to fix and the common and the probing questions that you should ask. So well, you could actually do this on a piece of paper if you didn't want to use our system or spend any money or anything. But the software does actually allow you to go through it in a structured way and kind of help take you through that process. But one of the reasons why I want to show you this is that once you've organized your thoughts and created that sales pitch, what Sales Scripter does is it dumps all your info, the benefits that are specific to you, the pain points that are specific to you and your industry, the questions that you should ask. It dumps all of that into call scripts. It creates call scripts for you. So here's an example of a call script for you, and then that same script is also displayed in this view as well. Now this is what you would use when you're making calls. Now part of the topic here is you can't get people on the phone, so having the best sales pitch doesn't do you much good if you can't get someone on the phone. So fair point there if we're talking about a call script, although the tool also does provide you with voicemail scripts. So here's a voicemail script. So I told you that you should use different voicemail scripts when you make different passes at the prospect. So here's a voicemail value message. Here's a voicemail message that focuses on the pain points that you help to fix. Here's a voicemail message that shares a customer example, and so on. I also mentioned to you that gatekeepers can often be put in your way, and that could be a challenge that makes it difficult to get prospects on the phone. Well, the tool actually provides objection responses. So a gatekeeper might say, just send me some information. Well, here's a response to that gatekeeper objection. What is this in regards to? So that's a big gatekeeper objection. So here are objections and objection responses to help you. So that's a little bit about the phone work, but we also talked a lot about email. I get emailed by salespeople all the time, and they send me this product message, right? I work for this company and I sell this product. I want to basically sell to you. Now, I don't respond to that message. And when they send me email number 2, which is basically I don't respond and then they're following back up with me, they often send me another version of the same email. It might change a little bit, but it's typically product message number 2. Or they just send me a very direct, hey, did you get a chance to see email number 1? So it's like an arrow back to email number 1. That's what the typical sales pitch provides. Now with this sales pitch, each of these rows can be a different message. You can have a message on benefits, on pain points, and so on. So this approach not only gives you better emails to send, it gives you more emails to send. In Sales Scripter, in your sales playbook, we give you here those different emails. So here's a benefits email, a pain points email, a customer example email. And just to show you what one of these looks like, here is a prospecting email. And so I won't go into that in too much detail, but like I said, it's not designed to get the prospect to reply asking for a quote. It's designed to start the conversation. It's designed to not trigger an instant delete. By the way, you can send this email directly through our software, and we will track. So you can make any edits and then enter the prospect and send out to them, or pull them from your CRM if you've already emailed them. You can get notified when they open and click on your emails. Well, one of the great things about having multiple emails to send is that you can then have something to send on those different passes of the emails you make, and you can begin to educate the prospect over a period of time. Now, we've done a lot of the work for you to tie all those emails together to create what we call an email thread. And so this is a multiple email thread designed to go out to the prospect over a period of time. And we've done all the work to add the follow-up message so they're all tied together. And if you send this email through our system, we'll automate the delivery of those future emails. So you can do one a week, one every couple days, whatever you want. That's an email thread. And like I said, our goal was getting prospects on the phone, but really our goal is getting into new accounts. And so these are some of the small things that you can tie together that can help you. Like I said, it's good messages, it's good voicemail messages, it's multiple attempts and whatnot. And then the automation can help you as well, because you send it once and then it continues to go out. So not only are you hitting them with repetition, but you're using a level of automation there that frees you up to go work on other stuff while the software kind of does the work for you. One last thing on the sales scripter side, I talked to you a little bit about guessing email addresses when you don't have an email address. We created this tool, it's called Email Guesser. And so I told you, if you know someone's first name, last name, and their company website address, their email address is going to be some combination of those three pieces of information. And we've actually, and then I told you that there's tools out on the internet that you can plug in a guest email address, and the tool will tell you whether or not it's good or not without sending an email to the person. And so what we've done is I've combined sort of my logic of doing different combinations with, we use some of that verification software, and this tool will validate what is the correct email address for you. So that's a great way if you're using phone prospecting and you can't get someone to answer the phone and you don't have their email address, you can use a tool like this to guess their email address. Or you can do it the crude way, but try to minimize the bounce backs, or use a verification tool on the internet. But I just want to show you that. By the way, there's a whole methodology behind all of that, meaning there's a methodology of switching from a product pitch to more of a consultative selling pitch to having a good, strong sales pitch. And we go through that in this webinar on how to build a powerful sales pitch, and you can follow this path to get there. So let's talk a little bit about the Gatekeeper, okay? And so like I said, getting into accounts and getting prospects on the phone, the Gatekeeper is going to be your obstacle. So one way to, before you can start to leverage the Gatekeeper, you have to sort of disarm the Gatekeeper. And one of the things they'll do is they're going to throw objections out at you. And their favorite one is, what is this in regards to? Is this a sales call? We're not interested. Just send me some information. So at a bare minimum, you want to have responses to those. We can help you with how to respond to those, and we explain our approach for dealing with those and how to get around sales objections. I would urge you to go to that webinar to explain how to get around those objections. So let's say you get around the Gatekeeper and you get to the prospect, either you get their direct line or you're calling to the prospect and you can't get them to answer the phone. You can actually use the Gatekeeper as a great resource. Let's say you've called the prospect 10, 20 times and all you do is get their voicemail. Well, you can push 0 at this point. You typically, when you get a voicemail message, you can press 0 or pound or some sort of different command, and you can get routed back to the Gatekeeper, or you could just dial a main company switchboard number and go back to the Gatekeeper and use the Gatekeeper as a resource. Seek advice and assistance for them, and be very straight with them. Say, you know, I'm trying to reach Mrs. Smith, and I'll tell you what, I've called her like 20 times and I can't, she never answers the phone. Can you help me with what the best way to connect with her is? Is there a certain time of day? Is there a certain method of communication? The Gatekeeper could shut you down and try to get rid of you. But they may try to help you, depending on how you sound and maybe the tone of voice you use and how you ask. But it's an option for you. It's something to consider. Another thing to do, and you could do this even if the gatekeeper tries to shut you down, or you could just do this before asking for assistance, or you could do this when just reaching the gatekeeper and receiving a gatekeeper's objections without even getting to the prospect's voicemail box. But you can try to treat the gatekeeper as a prospect. And so an example of this might be, let's say you're getting shut down or you're trying to seek assistance. You might say something to a gatekeeper like, hey, let me explain to you why I'm reaching out and why we work with businesses like yours, so that you might be able to point me in the right direction or might be able to help me. I'm with a consulting firm, and we work with sales managers, and we help to shorten the amount of time that it takes them to onboard new salespeople. So right there, I basically just shared my value prop that I would share with the prospect with the gatekeeper. And that can do a few things. It can disarm the gatekeeper, it can educate them, and maybe they might know who to connect you with. Maybe you're trying to reach the wrong person. So that's sharing your value prop. You might also share the problems that you help to fix. And you might say something like this to the gatekeeper. You know, a lot of sales managers reach out to us or work with us because it just takes forever to get new sales hires trained and ramped up. And the sales staff turnover is usually higher than they need. And it's just really painful anytime a salesperson quits. So that's why our clients have hired us in the past. And so that's an example of sharing the problems that you help to fix to your gatekeeper. You could either go a step further, or you could, instead of saying those, you could just ask the gatekeeper some questions. You could say, one of the reasons why I'm reaching out to Mrs. Smith is that we help to decrease sales staff turnover. Do you know on average how long a sales rep typically stays with you? Or have you guys had any problems with people either quitting real early or more people quitting than you would like? So forgive me if that's a good question or not, but you can ask that question to your gatekeeper. They might know the answer and be able to give you some valuable information, especially if your gatekeeper isn't an executive assistant, maybe more so than a switchboard operator. So that's an example of treating the gatekeeper like a resource, and maybe you can get information out of them. You could get them to direct you to the right person to reach. So here's another webinar. I showed you a webinar on objections. Here's a webinar on how to deal with gatekeepers in the best way. Want to wrap up with talking about organizational movement. So this is about how to sort of move throughout an organization. Now, a lot of times you're calling a contact that you have on a list or a contact, and you call them however many times, whether it's the right amount or not enough or too much. But then at some point you walk away and you start calling a contact at another company. When the reality is that there's multiple people probably inside an organization that you can reach out to, and there's sort of a method for how you can go about that. So let's just say our target person that we're trying to reach is a VP level, VP of IT. And so that's our target person, but we can't get a hold of them. Well, we could move vertically in their department. So we might try to go above them. Instead of the VP of IT, we're going to we're going to try to reach the CIO, and we tried at the VP level, but we're going to go above them. Or you might go below them. Typically, it's easier the lower in the organization, the easier it is going to be to get in or to get a hold of somebody at least. But what you see here is if you can't get a hold of that one person, try to go above and below. So that's what we would call vertical movement. You could do horizontal organizational movement, which is if we're trying to reach IT, well, you know what? We could probably also sell into operations. Yes, IT is maybe the key department. Maybe they're the person that's going to sign the contract, but operations is maybe a way to get in as well. And then if you kind of put that together on an org chart, here's that one person that you're trying to call, and you're only calling them, and they're not answering. But when you add all those other people that you can reach, you can see that there's a lot of people that you can reach. So sure, someone's never answering your call. Maybe they know what your number is, or maybe they have a personal policy of, I am not going to answer one single inbound phone call. Well, try to reach some of these other people, and you're basically hedging your bet. If you add these other people, at some point you might reach somebody that actually you can get on the phone. And so that is organizational movement. The concern is can't get someone to answer the phone. Well, here's a very small thing you can change, and that might not get that one person to answer the phone, but it could improve your ability to get into new accounts. So let's put all that together, okay? I just talked to you about all these different methods, the different repetition, the frequency, what you should say, and an organizational movement. So let's try to put all that together. What we would structure this under is what we would call a call cadence. So, and we structure this in 4 rounds. So round 1 is we call the prospect, right? And something's going to happen here, which is either they're going to answer the call or they're not. So let's say they answer the call. Okay, we go through our call script. The call script that I showed you in Sales Scripter is what you could use right here. Well, let's say they don't answer the call. On the first call, we're not going to leave a voicemail message. And the reason why is because we're going to take a step back, and now we're going to actually, instead of leaving a voicemail message, we're going to send our first pre-call email. So this might be pre-call email 1, which could be pain message. So by the way, you do have the option, and after that we're going to pause 1 day after we send this email. You do have the option just to start here. So if you want to start with your first step is the email and not the call, you could start at either place. But after this, we're going to pause 1 day, and that's going to complete round 1. Round 2 is 1 day has expired, and now we're going to call back. Because remember, we didn't leave a voicemail message, so we have that ability to keep calling back with a high frequency, meaning little time in between our call attempts. And of course, they're either going to answer the call and we can go through a call script, or they're not. At this point, we're going to leave voicemail message number 1. So we sent pre-call email with the pain points. Maybe now we leave a voicemail message with our benefits. And now we're going to send a post voicemail email with our benefits. So we're starting to hit the prospect with different messages. Now we're going to pause 7 days. Okay, so now we get to round 3 and 7 days has expired. We call back. And again, either they're going to answer, we're going to go through our script, or they're not. Now we're going to not leave a voicemail message. Now we're going to try we paused our calling because we left a voicemail and we sent an email. But now some time has passed, so now we're going to hit them with a little bit of high frequency call attempts, which is what is designed to improve our odds of catching them in their office. So we might call them once a day, a couple times a day, or whatever. And we're going to do that for a period of 1 to 2 weeks, or 5 to 10 attempts. After we've tried 5 to 10 times, or 1 or 2 weeks, we're going to leave voicemail message number 2, which is going to be different from voicemail 1. Send voicemail message email follow-up number 2, and then we're going to pause for 7 days. Now, what we can do at this point is now we can begin to move horizontally in the organization. So we've been doing all this up until this point with the VP of IT. Now we're going to try to call the Director of IT. And what we're going to do is we're going to start Director of IT on step 1 of our call cadence. By the way, the horizontal movement could have involved us pushing 0 to go back to the Gatekeeper to find out who the Director of IT is or who else we should talk to, and maybe that Gatekeeper then gives us that new contact, and then we start our call cadence round 1 with that new contact, and this whole process starts from the beginning to end with that new contact. But it also continues with this existing contact, and we're pausing 7 days, and now we get to round 4 and we call back. And did they answer? Yes. Okay, we go through our script. No. Okay, again, high frequency of call attempts without voicemail message, leading to eventually at some point we're going to leave voicemail message number 3. We send post voicemail email number 3, and at this point we've tried a lot. Now at this point we maybe a month has taken place in terms of time. We've sent multiple emails, we've left multiple voicemails, and whatnot. We could potentially close this prospect and label it under the category of we really tried and we're not going to continue to waste too much time. So one thing you could do is, if you have a decent email drip campaign, this is where you might be able to add this contact to some sort of email drip automation campaign. So meaning you're not going to continue to spend your valuable time calling them because you're going to consider them unreachable, but you're going to use your tools and your automation and your marketing, content marketing, to keep reaching out to them. So that's something you could do at this point. So that is sort of our approach for what to do when your prospect doesn't answer their phone and how to try to get into new accounts, and sort of using multi-touch, multi-attempt, a good message, leveraging the gatekeeper, moving throughout the organization. So that's what we have to help you. I hope some of that helps. If you like some of that and you want us to help you in more, if you think that we can help you in a bigger way, then what we offer is we offer basically what we would call the smart sales system. And this is basically our complete package of our tools and our methodology. And we call it the smart sales system because we're real big on teaching you what to say and ask. And I've been a salesperson. I worked for very established companies, technology firms, and they never really taught me what to say, right? They taught me, this is the product you sell, here's your territory, go sell. And the reality is that is not, I personally think the best sales tool you have are the words that come out of your mouth and the words you put into your written messages. So why not really either teach yourself or teach your salespeople how to say the right stuff and how to avoid saying really not optimum stuff. And so that's what we teach you. And we also teach you how to respond to objections and how to respond to questions and how to respond to prospects throughout the sales process. And we're about giving you tactics. It's telling you exactly clearly what to do and not do, what to say and what to say. So some people think tactical is necessarily not as good as strategic, but our process is very tactical. It tells you exactly what to do or what you can tell your salespeople to do. As you can see in this webinar right here, I tell you exactly what to do. A lot of sales training is very fluffy. If you go through a sales training, it might be motivational or whatever, but you get back to your desk and you go, okay, well, if someone doesn't answer this phone, I'm going to make this call, and either A, they're not going to answer the phone and I don't know what to do then, or B, they answer the phone and I don't know what to do then necessarily. So we tell you what exactly to do in all those different scenarios. So you can access this system in 3 different ways. Okay, the first way is through our methodology, and that's what I've really exposed you here today. Like I said, if you don't have any funds to spend and don't want to spend any money with us, you can access our methodology for free on YouTube through training videos. We put it all out there for free for a strategic reason because we want you to use our software. But if you want to access our methodology, you can access it on YouTube or through our books. We have free ebooks available, or you could buy a copy of a book that I wrote called The Cold Calling Equation from Amazon. And you can access basically all this content through recorded sales training videos. We also provide this training formally to companies through virtual sales training or in-person sales training. And a lot of that is, like I said, is given away for free because we want you to use our software platform that will help you to build your sales pitch. And as you do that, it's going to provide you a library of scripts and templates. It'll provide you a lot of functionality around CRM and email automation. And that's really our business model, is we want to help you as much as possible, and we do that through YouTube and through our ebooks. And if you really love all that stuff, then you should probably check out our software platform because it'll help you to put all that together. And the last leg of sort of our 3-legged stool is professional services. So we can certainly help you from a consulting standpoint to build your sales pitch, and we can either do that inside of our software together, helping you to answer all the questions and get the software set up, or we can do it outside of the software if you so choose. We can help you to sort of structure your sales process and look at any existing scripts or sales pitches that you're using. We can help you or your salespeople that are on the front lines through sales coaching and whatnot. So the real key here is we call it a smart sales system, but we believe by helping you to have clarity for what to say and do, this is going to help either you or your salespeople to be smart when you're selling. And so we're going to help you to be smart by helping you to ask good questions. Part of what to say and do is a really big piece of that is asking good questions. And when you ask good questions, you're going to really, you might be extremely new in your job and really not know all the answers to questions that prospects can ask you. But when you ask really good or more questions to your prospect, you're going to make a great impression. You're going to appear smart, and prospects are going to see you more as a consultant and give you more respect because you're going to make a good impression. And when you ask good questions, you're going to get good information from the prospect. And that information about their needs and their challenges and who they are and how qualified they are as a prospect is going to help you to make good decisions regarding what you do with that prospect, how much of your time you spend with them, and you're going to make good decisions. And by making good decisions, you're going to be wiser with the time that you have to use, and you're going to make the most out of each day and each week that you have to work with. There's only 40 to 50 hours in a week, so it's the best salesperson is the one that gets the most out of the amount of time they have to work with. And by being smart, not only are you going to sell more and be more successful, but your job is actually going to be easier and it's going to be less stressful. For example, if you know how to deal with objections and you have objection responses ready to go, when your prospect tries to get rid of you by giving you objections, it's going to be easier for you, less stressful, less annoying, by diffusing those objections and getting around them than if you're getting beat up all day and shot down and slapped around by your prospects. So not only are you going to be more successful, like I said, your job is going to be easier, it's going to be more fun, and it's going to be less stressful. So that's what we hope to help you with. Our software is $49 per month. You do get a 40% discount if you purchase an annual subscription. You can access sales training from us at no cost on YouTube. I personally will actually help you go through our software and help you to set it all up in a service we call a scripter walkthrough, which is a 2-hour process where I'll go through, basically help you to build your personal sales pitch, help you to brainstorm your benefits, your pain points, your questions, and it's only $200. So given all the things that I've done, for you to basically get 2 hours with me and the cost of the software, so basically for $250 and 2 hours of your time, you're going to have a full library basically of documents and a really powerful sales pitch. So if you just kind of put that in perspective, if you were to walk into a bookstore and walk into the business book section, and if you were to randomly see that someone wrote a book on a sales pitch for your product in your industry, and you open that book and it's filled with call scripts and meeting scripts and objection responses and voicemail scripts, and basically everything that our software provides was in this book, and it was all filled out for your particular product, and the price on it was $249, you would probably run to the cashier and say, I got to buy this. I can't believe I found this. I'm fairly confident that you would do that. In fact, you'd probably pay $500 for that, to be honest with you. One of the reasons why it would be so cheap at $249 is that our software is a monthly subscription, so you can continue to subscribe beyond a month, and there's a lot of reasons why you would, because there's tools that you would use on an ongoing basis. So it would be more than $249 if you use it ongoing. But if you only wanted to spend $249, or if you only wanted to spend $49, you could sign up, get all your documents, download them, and cancel your account and spend the bare minimum. So that's why it is equivalent to buying the book, because with the book you wouldn't get any of our tools to use ongoing, but you would get all the documents. So the metaphor is applicable to $249, but like I said, it would be more if you use our tools ongoing, like the email guesser or the interactive script or the email automation or automating the email threads and sending the email threads. So here's my contact info if you want to reach out to me directly, and glad to help answer any questions. Feel free to reach out. Let me see if there's any questions here.